Hi, I'm Anthony for City Backyard Veggies. Just over at my veggie patch. I'm over at my green beans actually. And this was my second planting of green beans that'll go over there in the corner. It's now ready to be harvested. So I'm going to go through now and harvest the crop and see what I end up with. So over here on the southern side of my patch, this is my second planting of green beans. I've got two varieties here actually. On the left I've got my French green bean, the stringless green bean variety called Jackson. And over here I have my stewing beans. This is the Mendoza. Now I planted these mid to late September. Now they're ready to be harvested. And so I'm going to go through, I've got 4 rows of green beans spaced at 40 centimeters apart, and the seedlings are planted at that 5 to 10 centimeter spacings. I like this spot for my beans because if you see, it's actually sitting underneath the canopy of both the avocado and the lemon tree, and that little bit of shade from the afternoon sun really helps them to get on well and grow strongly. I'm going to come through now and harvest the rows. So I've given enough space in between the rows to be able to put my foot in, but I will go through now and start harvesting the crop. So just over here, I'm just going to come through and just show you. As you can see there, the plant's full of beans, and what I'm going to do is just at the moment harvest the larger ones. I'll come through and do a second harvest, but at the moment I'm just going to harvest the larger beans. And again, this is the crop. They're slightly dirty because they're in the shade, but that's fine. While I'm at it, I will weed, get rid of all this undergrowth, and I'll leave the smaller ones to grow a bit longer. But at this stage, I like to harvest them just a bit earlier, just to make sure they don't go woody and stringy, but at the same time to encourage them to grow further flowers. But I'm going to keep going through the row, and actually do want to show you the next crops. There's actually a fair few beans on that one. Moving along the row, and this one here is just chock-a block full of beans, so I'm going to harvest what I can off this row. It's actually quite rewarding harvesting beans. They're actually quite an easy crop to grow as long as you keep the weeds down, keep them well watered, and just some general maintenance around weeds, and yeah, they can produce quite well. There you go, that's my bean harvest for the moment, so I'm really happy with those. Plenty of beans on these, which is really good to see. And the key with bush beans is they all come on at the same time, so you do get that big flush of beans, which is perfect for me, especially if I'm trying to freeze or cook large quantities of beans. It's actually quite easy to get a few kilos out as you're harvesting it. There you go, beautiful. Could continue on through the rows, harvest the rest. So I just finished harvesting my beans and got myself a nice full bucket. I would say close to 1.5 kilos here. Really great looking beans. Bring it close. You can just see it, absolutely amazing. Really clean, really straight. Really happy with these. There's no real rust showing through them yet, which is really good. There's still plenty of fruit on the plants, so I'm going to have to come through later and give them a harvest. But this is perfect size, and the great thing about these, they're great eating straight off the vine. Like, the crunch is unbelievable, and the flavour. what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take them inside, give them a bit of a wash, just to freshen them up a bit. And these will go into the fridge. I'll probably be eating over the week. I should have another pass next weekend, so about 7 days time, and I should be able to get another harvest this size as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Got to start planting my next round of beans, so I will be doing that tomorrow. I like to plant them staggered so there's a continuous supply of beans for dinner. So yeah, really happy with that. I'm gonna go inside, give them a wash, and see what else there is to do around the patch. So I'm over in my patch this afternoon. I'm actually just behind the mango tree against the fence here, and I'm actually going to go be planting my next planting of green bush beans. I've just started harvesting the beans that I've planted in early September, and now is the time to plant the next round of beans. I generally try to plant out a patch of beans once a month so that I've got a continuous supply of beans throughout the season. So this spot here previously had my broccoli, the last broccoli that I planted, and I've just dug it over and I've spread out a bit of horse manure compost, and I've actually just put in a bit of lime just to sweeten that soil a little bit. I've chosen this spot for my beans because it's actually somewhat shaded, and I find that green beans, especially bush beans, do a lot better if in dappled light or part shade rather than in full sun. And in my garden here, since it's been west facing, it does get the brunt of the heat, so having a bit of shade from the trees adjacent really work. So I'm going to come through now and just turn over the bed, mix in all the compost and the lime, and then I'm going to sort out my rows, and I'll show you how I go about doing that. So before I go and set up my rows, I just want to show you the variety I'm planting today. The variety is called Jade. It's a well-producing commercial variety that I've grown in the past, and actually what was really impressed me about this variety is that it provides a really long bean. I've grown beans up to 15 to 20 centimeters long and very straight. It's a very high producer. Now this is different to the previous patch I'd grown, which was Jackson. Jackson's just as good, but this is my preference when it comes to quality of bean and the size of harvest. In earlier videos I had raised seedlings to plant out for beans, and the reason why I did that because the temperature was still quite cool, the soil temperature was still quite cold, and they wouldn't have germinated, and I wanted to get an early start. Now that we're in the end of October, bean seeds will readily germinate in the ground, seeded direct. So I will be planting from now on my beans directly seeded in the bed. So I'm going to go through now and set out my beds and show you how I do that. So in setting out my rows, I am looking at going 20 centimeter spacings between each of the rows. So the back of my rake, I am progressively just forming up those rows. So that's my first one, to about 20 centimeters, which is about 20 to 30 centimeters, just enough to put my foot through there. But when I come to harvest, it's going to be quite hard to harvest when there's a big mass of beans. But just second row, and then I'll just continue with the same process all the way down the row. Okay, before I plant out my seeds, what I like to do is first really soak the trench, and that's the only time I actually water these seeds. But what I do is I really fill up these trenches, let it really soak, and then after that I will plant my seeds. So I'll get my hose, really fill up that trench, and what I try to do is actually use the trench as a guide and actually try to see, just trying to make it a little bit deeper, in the trench, a little bit more defined, using the water. And that's it when it comes to watering for my beans. So just make sure it's filled up. And then what I'll do now is just let it soak in, and once it's soaked in, then I'll come through and plant my seeds. So I'm just going to continue on and doing the rest of the rows as well. Okay, to plant the seeds, what I'm looking at doing is just trying to put one seed per hole. And what I'm doing essentially is just using a stick or whatever you got, just to dabble just a little hole like that. And I'm just going to put one seed per hole. I find that these ones germinate quite well. You can go two and that will be fine, but I generally like just to go one seed. So I go about 5 to 10 centimeter spacing, which is about there. Double another seed, and then just drop another seed in there. Now what I'll do is when I come back, I'll just use just a bit of fine dirt just to fill in the hole, and that's it. I won't do anything more than that. So I'm going to continue on and plant. I'm trying to get probably 20 plants or 20 seeds per row. I think I'll get about that, and I'll just continue the beds and I'll work through those. So there you have it, just planted out 6 rows of beans. Probably got 15 seeds per row, so I'm looking for a decent crop out here. I'm going to leave them as is now. I won't water them till they germinate, and I expect them to germinate in about 5 days time. And then I'll make sure to just get looked after, just try to keep away the slugs and the snails. But I'm expecting a harvest from these once they germinate in about 60 days. So, and I'm glad I got these in the ground. It'll set me up for harvests in that late summer period. So yeah, I'm really happy that's done. Look, thank you very much for joining me in this video. I really appreciate all the support, and I hope to see you in the next one.